Society Matters.
Hello and welcome to History Repeats. I'm your host, Liam Carballal, and joining me once more is Richard Acritelli. Richard.
Liam, how you doing? Good seeing you.
Yeah, good seeing you. How's have you been?
Good, just busy, you know. I teach at the high school level and the college level. I'm coaching, and then I try to get up here. So I'm always glad to come up here, you know. And it's always it's a very good experience. We're history guys. We're able to talk history with each other, and it's a good. It's just a tremendous experience. Something I'm very fortunate to be part of, and to see HMTV grow. And you know, we're on the foundation level of something that is only going to get better.
Yeah,
right.
So approach the 1 year mark since
yeah.
it's all started. It's coming together. I'm excited,
and there's going to be a lot of more episodes before we get to that 1 year mark, and we have a lot of great people coming in through a lot of different hosts and different ways of looking at things, and so it's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. So the big story this week is with respect to the ongoing Ukraine conflict. This is now year 3, slowly approaching year 4. Russia, one of the largest oil producers on the planet, is having a gas shortage. Can you speak to?
Good for them, you know. You know, they. I think they need to feel the sting of the war a little bit, because, you know, the Russians. The one thing they don't respect is weakness, right? And the best way to negotiate with the Russians is sometimes through brute force. You've seen that in every war, whether they win or lose it. I think President Trump kind of, you know, he took some shots at Biden, President Biden. You know, this would never have happened if I was a leader and so on. Who knows if there's any truth to that. You know, President Biden gave the Ukrainians a lot of weapons, a lot of resources, a lot of money as well, of which we had to do that because you can't allow that type of aggression or it's just going to keep on rolling throughout parts of Eastern Europe. Now you're getting into NATO countries and everything. So I think the Russians, as bad as it sounds, they have to feel the sting of the war. They got to feel the economic. Okay, you speak about the gas, right, the natural resources. But Zelensky came out and said that we know where your bunkers are located, which means that if we can get more offensive weapons that can fly like 1,500 miles, half the distance of the United States, we're going to make things very interesting against you. We're already holding our own. We've established this whole new drone warfare, which was on the cover of, I think it was Newsday yesterday, with Suffolk County Police using drones now to go up against criminals. And, you know, the drones were there, but the Ukrainians have completely taken it to another level. So they're able to do all these things. And, you know, they have kind of had a fight in some cases with one arm behind their back because of the engagement of the war. And I really believe that Trump calling them a paper tiger and being upset with Putin, they always said that they had that, like, you know, bromance between the two of them, right? Saturday Night Live made fun of it, right? But I think Trump tried going in saying that I could handle Putin and we can bring this war to an end and, you know, we could restore some sort of stability. It's not going that way. And when you look at, you know, Russia with their resources, massive with the resources, if some of these countries like India, okay, and some of the European countries stop buying their resources.
Countries like Hungary.
Hungary, you know, like it's crazy because the Russians are flying drones and fighter planes over their nations, but they're still buying
Polish
the
airspace.
resources.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, but it's nuts because the Russians have always been known for their resources. You know, when you looked at the non-aggression treaty between Stalin and Hitler, even on the day that Operation Barbarossa began, Russian trains were still flown in towards German territory with resources.
Yeah.
So it's a massive play, a lot of resource. It's a sad thing to say, but the Russian people have to feel the greater sting of the war. And until they have aircraft or drones in large numbers hitting their cities, Putin's just going to keep on going because he can't go back and negotiate and say, all right, we lost all these soldiers. We were embarrassed on the world stage. We're pariahs. There's no Western companies doing business here without significant gains.
Yeah.
That's what he's holding out for.
It has been interesting. One of the interesting things I learned about the course of the war is Putin is very careful to make sure the people of Moscow specifically do not feel the effects of the war. There's very little conscription. They try to keep prices down in the city. He is terrified of a October Revolution style revolt in his country.
Another 1917 where, history repeats itself. Look at your podcast, your show. But Putin, you look at some leaders. There's been leaders over the years where Louis XVI, right? The Romanovs. I mean, there's a huge list. The Shah of Iran, right? You had the Syrian leadership. Ceausescu in Romania, right?
Gorbachev,
but Gorbachev was a little bit different because he understood that the winds were changing. And, you look at Putin has always resented that, that Gorbachev kind of said, we can't support global communism because we can't feed our own people.
Yeah.
And we're never going to be able to compete with the United States. And then Star Wars scared the crap out of him, right? But you look at some of those leaders, they were firmly in charge. So nothing says that Putin is going to be there forever. He's an older man. His health probably isn't the greatest. There's days he doesn't look too great. I mean, they have a pound of, what do they go to Ultra to get him makeup, a pound of makeup on him. You never know. And I always thought that, you look
at pictures of Abraham Lincoln before and towards the end of the war. War takes a toll on Lincoln.
Takes a toll on you.
Yeah.
Lincoln was not an old guy.
No.
The thing with Putin is that the casualties have been so great. I always thought that somebody from his own security apparatus that keeps an eye on him would take him out sooner or later because they might have family members that were killed in this war and they understand kind of what's going on from the government perspective. It's not necessarily being hidden from them. So who knows? He's not in a good way. And, they make fun of that relationship between him and Trump. But one thing that Trump doesn't like is being looked bad. Yeah. He's fairly arrogant. He's got a very high opinion of himself, right?
And he wants that Nobel Peace Prize.
He wants the Nobel Peace Prize. But he doesn't like to look bad. And Putin has made him look bad. And for him to say, we're going to give more offensive weapons. Yeah. There's only so many military targets. Yeah. Sooner or later, they're going to take out bridges and airports and railroad lines and, factories and stuff like that where civilians are going to be there. And they have to feel the sting. Yeah. Just because the Ukrainians have just, for 3 years, they've gotten hit over the head. Yeah. It's unbelievable. And when that war finally comes to an end, the Ukrainian military is going to be one of the strongest militaries in the world. For a country that is lacking resources.
One of the poorest in Europe.
Yeah. And they keep getting hammered.
Yep.
They keep getting hammered by this war. So for the Russians to get hit with their resources, good for them. They deserve it. They brought on this war. You saw it with the United Nations. You, the UN countries, come out and say, this is madness. This has got to come to an end. And there's only so much the Russians could talk about, you know, the reasons why they went in there, the special military movement, whatever nonsense they want to give. But on the world stage, you know, they were completely shunned and embarrassed and, you know, to a point where, all right, you don't want to stop? Well, this is what's going to probably happen. We're going to give more money, aid, assistance, technology to help them. And Zelensky looks like he's aged, you know. He looks older, but he's staying the course. You know, they remember a lot of stuff from World War II and the Cold War. And they don't want to go back to that.
I think his grandparents were Holocaust.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah.
And what did Putin say at the start of it? You know, what did they say about Zelensky, that he was a Nazi or something like that? It's crazy, you know? The Ukrainians do have a checkered past in terms of World War II and collaborating with some of the Germans and so on, right?
That's Zelensky's family.
But you know what? Not everyone did that though either, you know? So, and you know, Zelensky wants to keep his country unified. I think he's probably willing to give up a little territory to stop the carnage. But the Russians have to willingly come to the table. In the 1990s, in Yugoslavia, Clinton brought the Serbs, the Croats, and the Bosnians to Dayton, Ohio, and he stuck them at that huge Air Force base out there. Almost what Jimmy Carter did with the Arabs and Israelis, and said, you're not going anywhere until we have some sort of peace. You know, Putin's got to be willing to do that, though. He's not. That's the thing. He's not. He could say whatever he likes, but who believes him, though? You know what I'm saying? He's turning into Pinocchio. Nobody's going to go down that road. You know, and I think his country is going to get hit pretty hard as a result of this. You know, and they already have been. They could say whatever they want. They already have been. You know.
You think Trump is going to stay the course that he's taken?
I think he's looked bad. I think he's got to show that he's not like any sort of puppet. I think that he, you know, had really been on the side of peace with somebody who's deceitful. Right? You know, like the Germans at the end of World War II, they wanted peace because they were getting obliterated. And nobody was going to negotiate with them because of everything that they've done. Right? They were beyond that. You look at Putin on a smaller level with Ukraine, he's leveled those cities. He's killed all kinds of generations of people. He's taken people,
kidnapped children,
and try to re-educate them in Russia. Those are ideals that the UN that was established here on Long Island and Lake Success was founded on. So history is repeating itself in a very, very graphic and modern way. And he, not too far from us, a couple of weeks ago, you know, they're just finding new ways of looking bad in this whole situation that they can't corral. They can't corral it. When they're taking towns, right? The Ukrainians fall back, but it's at such a brutal price to the Russian army. The winter's coming on. They're going to fight, but only so much is going to, you know, occur. You know, it's going to be very limited at this point. You know, so we have another year of this, you know, coming on. You said Lincoln. What did Lincoln want to do in the winter of 1865? He wanted victory. Because they knew once the spring came, the killings were going to start up on a larger level, you know. But you have to be able to get there, though. You know, that's the thing. It's a very bad situation that we're seeing unfolding every day. So,
what do you think peace, like a post-war Ukraine, post-war Russia is going to look like? Do you think?
Well, they always take NATO off the table, right? They could do that now, but down the road, NATO will be in Ukraine.
You think so?
Definitely. Because if NATO's in the Baltic countries and NATO's in the Eastern European countries, and if they're in Finland and Sweden, they're going to be in Ukraine sooner or later.
Yeah.
Because they're never going to trust the Russians. It's never a peace has got to be Western troops in Ukraine as a buffer. And if you kill our soldiers, then Article 5 is going to come about in terms of NATO.
Yeah.
And a peace there's got to be some sort of a Marshall Plan that the United States and European countries could put money into to build. They got to build up Ukraine. It's terrible. The country, they're like getting the table legs knocked out from under them. Their whole foundation has been hit extremely hard, and they're still fighting. I really do believe that you have to have more Western involvement. I think that minerals deal was good for the United States, but it was also good for the Ukrainians because it keeps us tied there. Yeah. I think that NATO will be in there sooner or later. Nobody could tell you 100% that no matter what agreement they sign, it's not going to. Look, Finland and Sweden, right? I mean, the Finns fought a border war against the Russians, right? They hated them, and sooner or later they came in. The Swedes, same thing. The one thing that Putin did was he expanded NATO. He really did. He showed the need for NATO, that there was a certain utility still for that organization that comes out of the ashes of World War II.
Who would have thought the guy who hated NATO the most probably did the most to help it?
He strengthened them. He, and even in Trump's eyes, who did not like NATO and did not like some of the European leaders and felt as though that we were doing too much intervention and so on, he realizes, hey, wait a second, I might be a little off on some of this stuff, that this is extremely important towards American security itself. So who knows? It's just Putin really stuck his head in the hornet's nest.
Yeah.
And
so what do you think a Russia without Putin moving forward, what do you think that might look like?
It's tough because Gorbachev was probably one of the more moderate Soviet premiers because he realized the gig was up. When you can't feed your own people, milk, eggs, bread, butter, poultry, fish, the meats, right? And when McDonald's got in there in 1990, with people waiting on mile-long lines for a Big Mac, the Russians really wanted like the West in there. You don't think it's a big deal today, like with Starbucks and McDonald's and the Gap and clothing. It's all Western stuff that they enjoyed, that they were deprived of. So it's a good question. I think there'll be somebody that's more moderate, somebody that's more open on working with some of the Eastern European countries. Because are the Eastern European countries going to attack Russia, or is Russia going to attack the Eastern European countries? Okay, I don't think Bulgaria is going to be going into Russia anytime soon, right? I don't think Hungary, it's one of those things. The fear is always coming from the East, and I think Russia's got a lot of lessons to learn from this year. And I believe 10 and 15 years down the road when Putin's gone and you get this rhetoric that, all right, let's go into one of these neighboring countries, you're going to have a whole generation of people that says, hey, wait a second. We lost a generation of people with this here. Our economy got hurt. We were kind of blindsided by how unprepared we were. You had reserves that had no idea why they were going in there. So it's hopefully there'll be a Russian leader that will be more willing to work with the West and kind of say we want to do more economic things rather than this disastrous war.
Yeah.
You know, so it's another good question. Time's going to tell. That's the thing.
Yeah. One of the questions I see brought up is just not so much what Russia would look like after Putin, is if Russia just remains a country unified after Putin. I could see, as I mentioned before, Siberia, like the parts outside of Moscow and the western parts, they've taken most of the brunt of the war because Putin doesn't think that like the threat of a revolution comes from the east. It's probably going to come from the political class in Moscow.
You look at Russia with all those republics that come out of the Cold War, right?
Yeah.
It's still a very diverse country.
Yeah.
You still have different ways of looking at things. Mm-hmm. And you still have groups of people who had risked their necks to speak out against Putin, the government, and so on.
Yeah.
And if these losses continue and they keep looking as bad as they do, you never know. You think about some of those leaders that we just spoke about. You never know.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. It's the country is. I think Russia is very vulnerable, extremely vulnerable, and they have to give bonuses to their soldiers. They have to give them more money, and their economy is a wartime economy. What's going to happen with Russia when the war comes to an end and the government isn't spending that kind of money?
Yeah.
You usually have an economic downturn. Yeah. Look at the United States after World War II.
After World War I.
Yeah. One of the worst recessions after World War II. Mm-hmm. The GI Bill here on Long Island, things slowed down. Colleges started popping up and so on. That bought time to get 18 million men back into the economy.
Into the workforce.
Right?
Yeah.
Into the workforce. So their economy is not that strong to begin with. Mm-hmm. They're strong for Eastern Europe, but globally, there's states in this country that produce more goods and services than the Russians do.
Yeah.
California being one of them. So maybe even where we're at here in New York, it's the strength of America. We've gotten hit hard with all this outsourcing and everything, right? Mm-hmm. Clothes that we're wearing is most likely made elsewhere.
Yeah.
But the country is still very strong.
Yeah.
The Russians can't say the same. No. And I think the Russians are, I think they're in a bad way. They really, are in a tough spot.
Do you consider yourself like an optimist with respect to this situation? Do you think the future is maybe looking bright, or do you think things are going to get worse before they get better?
Well, the Russians don't dare to use the nuclear bomb, right?
Yeah.
And they got to watch with the armaments that they're using because they've already done a lot of damage.
I hadn't even considered that.
Right?
No.
And they keep saying, well, if you attack us, we're going to do this. Well, that's just saber rattling. Mm-hmm. And they know it's I just don't see them going. They're screwing around. They're sending drones over Hungary, Romania, Sweden, all these countries. They're sending the planes over. They're just trying to divert away from the Ukraine. Mm-hmm. They can't fight here. How are they going to fight over here?
Yeah.
It's not the United States during World War II where, hey, we got attacked at Pearl Harbor. Mm-hmm. We knew what the Nazis were all about. We're here in Glen Cove. You have citizens that live across the street from each other, that one goes to the Pacific, one goes to Europe. Mm-hmm. The country was united, right? They're uniting other countries against them, not only now, but for the foreseeable future. Mm-hmm. For when I'm 50 years old, from when I turn 70, it's not going to change. Yep. They're never going to be able to be trusted. Mm-hmm. The Germans and Japanese, we spend more money on their defense than they do because they can't be trusted as a result of the disaster of World War II. Look at where we're sitting. We're sitting in the Holocaust Museum. There's still things that we learn about the Holocaust in terms of how awful a period it was, right?
Yeah.
The Russians cannot be trusted. And I think they stuck their neck out a little too far on this here. Yeah. They thought it was going to be so easy. You saw
3
Putin,
days until Kiev falls.
Crazy. You saw Putin and the Chinese premier, who's in trouble economically now in China, laughing like kids that were going to rob a candy store. You know, and they thought it was going to be so easy because some of that was Afghanistan was a disaster. They thought that, hey, Americans look vulnerable here. They're only going to do so much for the Ukrainians.
Yeah.
And I think they got a little bit of a dose of reality where we could always do more, but I don't think we're going to back down from this here. We can't. We cannot back down from this situation. It's a fight that carries too much weight. Yeah. There's too many concerns with this here.
Yeah.
And I think with Trump kind of going the other way now, that hurts Putin even more. Because of all those Saturday Night Live skits, they were funny, but there was a little reality to some of them too. So,
yeah. Here's hoping for the peace in our time, so to speak. But all right, Richard, it's always good to have you. This is a very poignant statement.
Sure.
All right. Thank you. This has been History Repeats. I'm your host, Liam Carballal. This is HMTV. Thank you, and come back next time.